The salt-streaked wind off Lake Huron whipped through my hair, carrying the faint tang of fish and damp wood. I stood at the edge of my property, my boots sinking into the soft earth, staring at the monstrosity that had invaded my slice of paradise. A garage blocky, gray, and smug squatted on my waterfront lot like an uninvited guest who'd already helped themselves to the good whiskey. Karen, the HOA president, had built it there without so much as a text. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. This wasn't just a garage. It was a declaration of war. I'd bought this lot in Port Austin 2 years ago, a quiet escape from the grind of Detroit's auto plants. The plan was simple: a small cabin, a dock for my kayak, and mornings spent watching the sunrise bleed gold across the water. I'd spent months sketching blueprints, dreaming of cedar walls and a porch swing creaking in the breeze. But Karen had other plans. She'd been eyeing my lot since I signed the deed, her pinched lips muttering about community aesthetics and property standards at every HOA meeting. I'd ignored her. Big mistake. The morning I discovered the garage, I'd driven up for a weekend of clearing brush. The sight hit me like a sucker punch. My view of the lake, my sanctuary, was gone, replaced by cinder blocks and a metal roof that gleamed like a middle finger in the sunlight. A handwritten note was taped to the door, Karen's loopy cursive announcing, HOA-approved storage for community equipment. Community equipment. I ripped the note down, my hand shaking, the paper crumpling in my fist. She hadn't even asked. She'd just taken. I stormed to her McMansion down the street, the kind with fake shutters and a lawn so manicured it looked like it got a daily haircut. Karen answered the door in a pastel tracksuit, her blonde bob as stiff as her smile. "Oh, Jake," she said, like she was greeting a lost puppy. "Is there a problem?" Her voice dripped with that fake sweetness that made my skin crawl. I held up the crumpled note, my voice low but trembling. "You built a garage. On my lot." She blinked, unfazed, sipping her iced coffee through a straw. The HOA voted. "Jake, that lot was an eyesore. We needed storage. And your property was the best fit. You weren't using it." Her tone was so matter-of-fact, like she was explaining why she'd borrowed a cup of sugar. My blood boiled. "You didn't ask me. You didn't even tell me." She waved a manicured hand. "Check the bylaws. Sweetie. Eminent domain for community benefit. It's all legal." Legal. That word stuck in my throat like a fishbone. I left before I said something I'd regret, her smug chuckle trailing me like a bad smell. Back at my lot, I sat on a stump, the lake's gentle lapping mocked by the garage's hulking shadow. My phone buzzied a text from my sister, Lila, who'd been my rock since Dad passed. "What's wrong? You sound pissed." I sent her a photo of the garage. Her reply was instant. She did what? Call a lawyer. Now. I didn't sleep that night. The hum of cicadas outside my motel room felt like a taunt, their rhythm syncing with my racing thoughts. By morning, I'd hired a lawyer named Marcus, a wiry guy with a handshake like a vice and a grin that said he loved to fight. He dug into the HOA bylaws, the property records, the permits or lack thereof. "Karen's full of it," he said, leaning back in his office chair, the leather creaking. "No eminent domain clause applies here. She didn't file permits. That garage is illegal as hell." The next week was a blur of paperwork and phone calls, each one fueling my quiet rage. Marcus uncovered something else. Karen hadn't just built on my lot. She'd been skimming HOA dues for years, funneling them into community projects that mysteriously benefited her friends. The garage was just the latest in her power trip. I could have gone straight to court, but Marcus had a better idea. "Let's play her game," he said, his eyes glinting. "Make it public. Make it hurt." The HOA meeting was held in the community center, a sterile room smelling of burnt coffee and cheap air freshener. Karen sat at the head of the table, her gavel resting like a scepter. Neighbors filled the folding chairs, their whispers buzzing like static. I stood in the back, my heart pounding, Marcus at my side. When Karen called for new business, I stepped forward, my boots thudding on the linoleum. "I'd like to discuss the garage on my lot," I said. my voice steady but loud enough to cut through the murmurs. Karen's smile faltered. Just for a second. Jake, we've been over this. It's for the community. I cut her off, holding up a stack of documents Marcus had prepped. No permits. No approval from me. No legal right. You built it on my property, Karen, and you're going to take it down. The room went silent, the air thick with tension. A woman in the front row, Mrs. Delaney, gasped, her knitting needles clattering to the floor. Then came the surprise. Mrs. Delaney, a quiet widow who'd lived here forever, stood up, her frail frame trembling. She did it to me too, she said, her voice cracking. 10 years ago, Karen took half my garden for a community walkway. Said it was in the bylaws. I didn't fight her. I should have. The room erupted in whispers. Another neighbor, Tom, chimed in, his voice gruff. She charged me for a fence I didn't want. Said it was HOA mandatory. Karen's face turned the color of sour milk. Marcus stepped in, calm as a lake before a storm. We've got evidence of financial mismanagement, unpermitted construction, and abuse of power. The garage comes down. Karen, and you're stepping down as president. Karen slammed her gavel, her voice shrill. This is outrageous. You can't prove anything. But the room was turning. Neighbors who'd been silent for years were shouting now, their grievances spilling out like water from a cracked dam. The next day, I got the call from Marcus. The county had reviewed our case. The garage was deemed illegal, and Karen had been slapped with a fine so hefty it made my eyes water. Demolition was scheduled for Friday. I drove to the lot that morning, the air crisp, the lake sparkling like it was in on the secret. A wrecking crew was already there, their machines growling like hungry beasts. Karen showed up as the first sledgehammer swung, her SUV screeching to a stop. You can't do this, she screamed, her voice raw, her perfect bob unraveling in the wind. I crossed my arms, the weight of the last weeks lifting off my shoulders. It's my land, Karen, and it's legal. The crew didn't stop. The first wall came down with a crash, concrete dust clouding the air, the sound like thunder rolling over the lake. Karen's face crumpled, her hands clawing at her hair. She lunged toward me, but Marcus stepped in, his voice cool. Walk away, Karen. You're done. She stood there, frozen, as the garage crumbled, each crash a punctuation mark to her downfall. By noon, the lot was clear, the lake stretching out before me like a promise kept. The crew hauled away the debris, the rumble of their trucks fading into the distance. I sat on the same stump I'd sat on weeks ago, the lake's gentle lapping now a song of victory. Mrs. Delaney shuffled over, her eyes bright despite her age. You did good, Jake, she said, her hand patting my shoulder. You reminded us we can fight back. That night, I cracked open a beer, the cold glass sweating in my hand. The stars were out, sharp and bright, reflecting off the water. Karen was gone, resigned, disgraced, her McMansion listed for sale by the end of the week. The HOA was under new leadership, with Mrs. Delaney stepping up, her quiet strength a balm to the neighborhood's wounds. I exhaled, a long, shaky breath, feeling the weight of the fight settle into something new, pride. This wasn't just about a garage. It was about standing up when someone tries to take what's yours. It was about the little guy, Mrs. Delaney. Tom saying enough is enough. The lake whispered its approval, the water lapping against the shore. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. My cabin would rise here, on my terms. And no one, not Karen, not anyone would take that from me again.